Hi, I'm E.T. Lewis and welcome back to Nocturnal Reviews. And as you can see, a few things. One, Ring and Cane, meaning Dark Shadows video. And two, you may notice the horns have returned. It's been a while since they returned. Now, they have returned quietly when I wasn't filming, and I did manage to suppress them, but since Summer Spooks ended, they started cropping up. And since I'd gotten my hair cut not that long ago, it's been hard to hide them, and they just completely sprouted out again. So, hey, they have a new pattern this time. I'm loving it. I'm digging that new pattern. So, yeah. If they get too much out of hand, I'm gonna have to figure out how to suppress them or just saw them off. And that is painful. But anyway, so the sawing off, not the suppressing, though the suppressing can be a little difficult. So, but anyway. So the horns are back. So today I'm doing part one of a Dark Shadows review. I've talked about this briefly, but kept it really vague what I was going to be doing. So this one will probably have some spoilers for at least one of the Dark Shadows audios, Dark Shadows: The Rage Beneath, and maybe some minor spoilers from the first season of the Dark Shadows audios, which would be The House of Despair, The Book of Temptation, The Christmas Presents, and The Rage Beneath, like I already mentioned. So I'm doing a review on Dark Shadows: Kingdom of the Dead, the second season of Big Finish's, I will get a better picture up, Big Finish's Dark Shadows audio dramas. So, this is my physical copy. I know they had it on Audible. When I looked some months ago, I don't have an account with them right now. Well, I don't have a subscription. Of course I have an account. I don't have a subscription with them right now, so I don't know if it's been updated. They were missing either part 2 or part 3, and I'm assuming it's because there must have been some issue, and maybe that issue has been resolved and it's back up. I have no idea. So I don't really look too much into their library. I just go on there with what I already have, so, and listen. But anyway, yeah, so we have our returning cast members in this one. You know, David Selby as Quentin Collins, Laura Parker as Angelique, Catherine Lee Scott as Maggie Evans, John Carlin as Willie Loomis, Jameson Selby as Ed Griffin, Ursula Burton as Susan Griffin, his wife, and also Andrew Collins as Barnabas Collins. Now, you may remember from season 1 that Barnabas Collins was killed in the Strix, or Mr. Strix's invasion of Collinwood in 1977, and so Barnabas has a brand new body. Angelique placed his soul into one of the bodies of Mr. Strix's lost ones, or, you know, the lost. Sorry, I feel like there's something right on my face. Anyway, so, you know, played by a new actor who does a fantastic job, and Barnabas has been struggling a little bit with his personality. He feels like this new body is kind of trying to take over. So, you know, he's not quite the Barnabas we know, but Andrew Collins does a fantastic job. There's a bit of the old Barnabas, there's a bit of a brand new Barnabas, you know, with this, so I really like what they did. It was very clever. Now, Jonathan Frid did do a Dark Shadows, and I have reviewed that one in the past, and that is Dark Shadows: The Ghost Whisperers, which was excellent. It was him, John Carlin, and Barbara Steele, and it was written by Stuart Manning. Fantastic. Stuart Manning, I do believe, wrote this one as well, and this is another great one, I will say that. It's not my favorite of the full cast audio dramas. This is more like what the show, you know, ended up being. Or, you know, more like the original show is what I'm trying to say. And in my opinion, I think the following story, after this season gets finished up, is even more so. Now, when I say following story, I mean following full cast story. Series. It's I would consider it season 3, though it's just considered to be a mini-series, is even more like the show. The storyline here gets much more serialized. The first season was like independent stories with like 3 or 4 episodes per story arc, and this one you get interweaving stories and subplots that go from beginning to end. And it's a fun ride. So we do get some more cast members from the original show. We do get 2 more that do pop up. And we also get a cast member, spoiler alert, playing an old character. A new cast member playing an old character. I'm not going to say who that is, at least in this video. It'll probably crop up in the next one, so spoilers. So anyway, I've listened to the whole thing a couple different times, but on my latest re-listen, I've listened to parts 1 and 2. So part 1 picks up a short amount of time, I think within like hours or maybe just a couple days. It's a little vague. I think they did make a reference of it just being like a day or 2 after the events of The Rage Beneath. Quentin and Barnabas have vanished. They are presumed dead, and seemingly, I will say, they are kind of dead now. They are in the underworld, the kingdom of the dead, led by Seraph, played by the late and great David Warner, who is fantastic to have come in and playing a new Dark Shadows villain. In some ways, he's definitely no Patofi, but I mean, in some ways, he's as clever as Patofi. I wouldn't say he's exactly evil, though, like Patofi was, but he's fun and interesting, kind of in that vein of Patofi, but not it's hard to explain. So, you know, he's in a similar league. Definitely no Patofi, though. So they're trapped in the kingdom of the dead, and they are reliving bits of their past, except for it's not quite right, and they can't remember certain things. And Seraph keeps pushing them a little bit. In the meantime, Angelique's on an agenda of her own, trying to figure out where exactly they are and how to get them back. And even on top of that, we have Maggie Evans, who set fire to the ship, the Lorelei, in the previous story, and sent Barnabas and Quentin to their doom. Now, of course, Maggie was not in control of herself. Someone else was occupying her at that time. And so the sheriff, who is played by... Oh, I forgot about that. The sheriff, who's played by James Storm, Sheriff Haggerty, is trying to find Maggie, and he's trying to ask some questions. He knows she was there, and he wants to find out what exactly happened. So we have Willie and the Griffins, who are all kind of covering for Maggie. And Maggie and Willie end up taking refuge in a few different locations. A well-known location from Dark Shadows, I'm sure you can probably figure it out with a certain secret passage, and then elsewhere. And we'll be right back after these messages. Every month here in Nocturnal Reviews, I have a featured read, and this month I decided to do a Dark Shadows one. Even though Dark Shadows just turned 60 the end of last month, it still counts. So I am featuring Dark Shadows: Angelique's Descent by Lara Parker. Have you ever been interested in the history of Angelique Bouchard, the witch who cursed Barnabas to be a vampire, who has had dealings with the Collins family on and off for a few different centuries? Well, this is the book that tells her story, how she came to be the character we know and love today. So please check out Angelique's Descent and let me know what you thought. Do you like the sound of werewolves howling in the night, the moans of creatures, and the bubbling up of mysterious aquatic terrors? Then you might be interested in my Universal Monsters Reading Challenge, which is going on all year of 2026. It's got plenty of prompts, all based around the classic Universal Studios monsters: Dracula, Frankenstein, the werewolf, the creature from the Black Lagoon, so on and so forth. Plus a few bonuses. You don't want to miss it. So that's all I'm going to really say about part 1, except for there are some things that come to light. which causes more issues. And there are some divisions that even get picked up in part 2. Some characters are no longer allies with one another. Everybody is kind of on their separate paths. Maggie finds herself taking up refuge at Wyncliffe, ultimately, who's run by a brand new doctor, Dr. Renkin. And let's just say things are not as they seem at Wyncliffe. It's not the same Wyncliffe as you remember it. Things have definitely changed. And I don't want to give too much away. It's the bad thing about talking about this is I'm trying to leave out certain things, but some things I'm going to have to talk about. Seraph does end up in the world of the living. And he's got a plan, but he's kind of struggling a bit. And our characters start converging on similar path lines. And I cannot talk about it anymore without spoiling, and we'll just have to talk more about it in part 2 of this review. So it was nice. The cast is fantastic. It was nice to hear, of course, our returning cast members that are our main cast of characters, but we also got the return of James Storm playing Sheriff Haggerty, and Jerry Lacey comes back as a brand new character as well. And of Jerry Lacey's characters in all these audios, even the characters he's returned to and the new characters he's kind of being, this one is actually my favorite. And it's not in this one he becomes my favorite. I really came to love this character in the next storyline, in the next Dark Shadow series. Season 3, if you will. And David Warner was a fantastic addition. I mean, really, he's this different kind of villain. I know I compared him to Patofi, and I want to iterate, he's not a Patofi character, but he just kind of has, there's a certain feel to him that is Patofi-ish. He was just the right choice of a villain, in my opinion, and David Warner, you know, was a legend. And it's great that he is in Dark Shadows in some capacity. He could play good guys, he could play bad guys. I think he's best remembered for playing bad guys, though. But, yeah, I really enjoyed hearing him in this. So I rated these first 2 parts between 4.5 to 5 stars. Ultimately, of course, I think that rounds up to being, you know, we're going to round up to 5 stars for these first 2 parts. I think I liked part 2 a little bit better. It definitely was interesting, especially with the stuff going on at Wyncliffe and Seraph coming to our world, the physical world, the world of Dark Shadows anyway, as opposed to the Kingdom of the Dead, the afterlife. So, but all in all, I loved it, and it's much more like the Dark Shadows we know and love, as opposed to these individualized stories. Not that the individual stories aren't fun, and some more so than others, but this was a real treat. And to me, the next full cast series is even better, and it's my absolute favorite. So, that's all I can really talk about with part 1 of this review. You're not going to see part 2 for, I think, a couple weeks, because I think my next review is going to be another Summer Spooks, my last Summer Spooks one for this year. And then I have a pre-filmed video, if I'm remembering the schedule right, I have a pre-filmed video right after that, which I filmed a few months ago, I think. And it's Dark Shadows related. And then I think I'm going to get part 2 of this filmed. I need to re-listen to parts 3 and 4 before then anyway, so I'm sure I'll get to it by then. And, yeah, so until next time, stay safe, stay spooky, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.